Hello everyone, Mr. Singularity here, and welcome to my first Destiny guide video. I'm not sure if I'll be doing these more in the future, but I thought some of the info I had to share today would be at least helpful for that enough that I should make this video. This video is going to be on how to do Legend Lost Sector solo to get the new armor pieces, either the helmet or the gauntlets, depending on which character you want them on, or if you want them on all the characters, or how to just do it so that you can get re-rolled, better statted exotics that you already have, depending on whichever drop the Lost Sector is giving that day, and whatever Lost Sector it is. Today's Lost Sector is going to be Bunker E15. This is a Vex Legend Lost Sector. But my first step is, depending on whatever Lost Sector it is, make sure you at least do it once normally that day, just so that you know, like, not without being Legend or Master, just a generic Lost Sector. To run it once, just so you can get an idea of what the layout is. Maybe you forgot. It's good to know what it looks like at least, because that'll help when you go into it. Today's video, I will be doing Bunker E15. And it was giving I think the chest piece, which I don't really need a chest piece, but I'm just going to do it anyway. Remember that it's a random chance. You're not guaranteed to get it solo, but you do have to do it solo to get it. And like I said, it's best to be close to the light level prior to getting to it. Being slightly under is not the worst. It's just going to be a little bit harder. And you'll definitely have to have the mechanics down. My recommendation for weapon loadouts kind of varies, but my newest role that I like going with is Divinity, anti-barrier pulse rifle, and some kind of sword. Guillotine might be good. I prefer this over Lament, just because I can overload blast them with this, and also put a shield around, or put a crit bubble around them, so it's pretty nice. But like I said, if this isn't maybe the best guide, but it's my personal guide, so experimenting is probably a good idea. But if you're having issues, at least maybe try my option out. Like I said again, run it once normally, and if you don't see any Lost Sectors that day, or maybe because you're on a second character, make sure you run it, because you won't even have access to the Legend Lost Sector if you haven't even ran it once on that character, ever, like that Lost Sector. So if you're not seeing any on the map, or you're only seeing one on the map, maybe try and figure out what the other one is, and then just run it once normally so that you can unlock it. And we're going to go into it now. Some other recommendations is, remember that you cannot change your weapons once you get in here. As you see, as it says equipment lock. But if you're running Hunter, I recommend Celestial Nighthawk with Golden Gun. It's great for knocking out anti-barrier servitors and knocking out the boss really quick. Warlocks, I kind of recommend Bottom Tree Void. It doesn't one hit, but it's good to throw it at the boss, especially if the boss likes to stay stationary for a while. And then hitting it with Divinity while it's there. It's pretty good too. Titan, I don't really know what the best would be. If you're having really trouble staying alive, maybe Bubble, would be good. If not, maybe Stasis, just for ad clearing. I do recommend an armor piece for Titans, and that would be Armamentarium. I like having the double grenades, especially with the Duskfield Stasis grenades, with the Thermal Overload, or whatever it's called, the perk on the Thermal Overload. That way you can freeze them and also pop Overload on them, and then sometimes it'll freeze them twice, and then you can go to town with a sword. But other than that, let's go. When you're really low level, or if you're having trouble staying alive, staying back here on this Lost Sector behind this little thing where they can't shoot you as well is good. Don't worry so much about the time, but just make sure that you get to the boss by the time the time runs out, because once the time runs out, you lose all of your available lives. So having lives when you get to the end is good. And you can see that's why I like using Divinity. It's really good for overloads. And if you can get close to them, you can also just pop them with that. And while they still have their bubble around them, the crit bubble, just heavy hit them with the sword. If you don't have Divinity, I would probably recommend Lament. And then just doing the thing where you rev it, and then 3 light attacks, followed by a heavy attack method for killing them once you've popped their overload with an auto rifle or a grenade or whatever you're using to pop them. This is Vandal hiding over here. Or Vandal, yeah. For this Lost Sector, I also recommend popping these. They won't necessarily do it the whole Lost Sector for you, but having extra little dummy turret bots shooting them is definitely helpful. Again, keeping visibility low for enemies shooting you, like staying back here and just hitting them so that they have less options to hit you, is definitely a good strat. And my other strat would definitely be learn where you are. For example, behind this wall is a Minotaur that does a lot of damage. Remembering that that's there on your runs will definitely save you alive, or maybe even the whole run if you've already used up some of your lives. So just learning where everything is, definitely helpful. Again, this room up here is going to have a bunch of those little dummy bots that shoot around, so popping all of the little Vex Detainment cubes is definitely helpful. Like that one. And also, yeah, remember, enemies like hobgoblins are definitely not something that you want to underestimate. Letting them hit you is definitely going to take a lot of your health. Also, in this room, there is a barrier hobgoblin to be aware of. But each lost sector is different. Some of them are fallen, and so they're in different spots. If it's a fallen lost sector, watch out for the anti-barrier servitors. They like to shield every enemy, and especially in the concealed void lost sector, that can be annoying, as the shanks do a lot of damage, even to me when I'm above 1250. Getting rid of things like the hobgoblins quickly is definitely a good idea, and also watching out for Cyclops blasts. If you're running Golden Gun with Celestial, at any point where you run into something like an anti-barrier or an overload that you're having trouble with, if you think you have enough time to get to the boss and get the Golden Gun back, I would definitely recommend using the Golden Gun to destroy something that's taking up your time or your lives, as you definitely want to be able to at least get to the final boss. And here's that anti-barrier hobgoblin I was talking about for this lost sector. Yeah, being able to hot swap between your DPS weapon and your anti-barrier weapon is definitely a must for the anti-barrier enemies, or for barrier enemies. My other warning for this right here is there is a overload Minotaur, or maybe he's barrier. I can't remember exactly, but he definitely will hunt you down, and he will follow you all the way back there. I think he's overload. So yes, being aware that he's there and being able to take him out early before he gets a grip on where you are is definitely a must. When I was under level, that was one of the biggest things that messed me up with this lost sector, was that overload Minotaur. Also, watching out for wyverns is definitely a good idea as well. And goblins with no heads, as they will also chase you down. Things like AoEs, like the Fanatic Death Pool and Exploder Shanks, also watch out for. The Concealed Void one has a lot of explosive shanks, and also knowing that there's 2 waves of them is definitely a good thing to know. That's again why you should run it at least once normally, so that you know the normal layout, and then once you do it norm with the legend, then you can figure out where the champions like to camp around and stuff, and what kind of champions are. Again, like barrier servitors will immediately shield pretty much all of the enemies near them, which is kind of annoying. And especially for the garden lost sector on the Cosmodrome, the barrier servitor can even shield the overload captain. A lot of people say they hate overload stuff. I pretty much hate barrier more. Overload to me is manageable. As long as it's not the Minotaur. I hate the Minotaur. I'm going to throw a Noble Bomb at this guy so it can just sit there and do damage to him. See how it says a champion has appeared? That means the big boy Minotaur has spawned in. So watching out for when that happens is ideal for this Lost Sector. And here he comes, maybe. Yeah. Blasting him with something with overload like Divinity really quickly is definitely the key here. And then just getting rid of him before he kills you. Well, trying to anyway. Is definitely the goal here. And that would not be a smart move to play if you were doing this at under level or your first time. I was just trying to get rid of them. But yeah, being cautious here. Staying like in the front entrance of most of the Lost Sectors, like for example here, is pretty safe. If it's the Concealed Void, there's like this shelf thing, kind of like right here, that's up above, and then there's an opening. If you stay up here when you're really under level, there's little spots where you can kind of hit the boss's foot and stuff. That's a really good strat for if you really don't have the health or the resistance to basically stay alive. And also for the garden one on the Cosmodrome, if you just stand like basically at the entrance and just shoot the servitor, Golden Gun, great. Golden Gun will one-hit it, the big servitor, so long as you make it. And then if you don't have a super, yeah, just hitting it with something like Divinity or whatever your DPS weapon is. Healing Rifts, also good. Just putting one down if you're going to risk anything. I mean, if it's your first time, I'd recommend just not risking. Taking it slow, like I said, you don't have to beat it within the 15 minutes. The only thing that'll happen is that you'll run out of lives if the 15 minutes happens. And then you have to be extra, extra careful. This next part can be annoying. As you see, we got the cash code. We still have our time going, and we still have our lives, so you have to be careful not to get killed. This Lost Sector is actually pretty easy to just run up to the chest. Some of them you're really exposed, so if you have some kind of roaming super, might be a good time to grab that and just pop it, and then just basically, if it accelerates you forward, definitely use that and just throw yourself towards the chest as fast as possible. Grabbing the chest is all you need to do. Once you grab the chest, you'll know if you got the exotic or not. As you see in this run, I didn't get the exotic. My last pretty much tip that's new would definitely be, remember that you can do these more than once. Once you get it down on how to do this quickly and efficiently, you can just fly through them, and then basically you can do them as many times as you feel like you're willing to, and to get whatever exotic you're trying to get. And I guess we'll just do some review. Remember that your weapons are locked, so basically having something that can deal with overload and barrier is great. I would recommend overload or thermal overload as an extra option. Always having more options is great. If you ran out of your auto rifle or whatever you're using to get rid of the overloads, it'd be nice to be able to have the grenade, but remember it only works with solar or stasis subclass. Things like Divinity are great. For one, it has overload. For two, it puts a crit bubble around basically anything, so you can hit the overload bosses out. You can throw it at the normal boss. You can shoot it at the ads, anything. It's a great weapon for that. But I know it is a raid weapon, so not everyone might have it. I also recommend anti-barrier SMG, especially with like a good roll Ikelos SMG or 7th Seraph maybe. Things like War Mine cells might be helpful if you have access and know how to use those. If you don't have access to Divinity, I recommend Lament. Lament has anti-barrier, and then just do the thing where you block 3 light attacks and then followed by a heavy attack. Will usually one-hit any of the overload bosses. I wouldn't recommend doing it to the final boss unless you have a lot of health, or a lot of lives I mean, at the end. And then you can maybe just waste a couple lives doing this, but yet again, I wouldn't really recommend that for a first time. I would recommend getting the idea of how the Lost Sector works down, how you're going to run it through, what weapons you want to use, what super, what exotics, or whatever. And I hope this helps. Again, I don't know if I'll make any more guide videos. I'm not that great at talking or staying on track when I'm talking about things like this in a video. But if this was helpful, I'm glad. Remember to leave it a like or subscribe or whatever. And I'll see you in the next video.